The chamber fell silent the moment the old general stood. His scales were dull, his eyes weary. Yet when he spoke, every warrior felt their blood run cold. "You speak of invading Earth," he rasped, as if it were just another conquest. "Another banner for your glory." He paused, gaze distant. "I once commanded such an invasion. I watched as our fleets vanished, one by one, without a single human reply. You want to attack Earth?" he said softly. "Then pray your world never succeeds." The forgotten colony commander Marcus Vale stood before the panoramic viewport of Station Erebus, watching ice crystals dance in the rings of the gas giant below. The station orbited silently in the Andromeda sector, 300 light-years from Earth, home to 47 scientists, engineers, and support personnel. They were miners, researchers, and explorers pursuing humanity's endless hunger for knowledge and resources. Out here on the edge of explored space, they were alone. Or so they believed. Dr. Yuki Tanaka burst into the observation deck, her breath coming in short gasps. "Commander, you need to see this immediately. Mining Team 7 found something in Asteroid Cluster 94 Alpha." She thrust a datapad toward him, her hands trembling slightly. Vale took the device and studied the images. The mining drone had cut through layers of rock and metal, standard composition for the region, but 15 meters deep. It had discovered something that made his pulse quicken. The object was cylindrical, approximately 3 meters long, composed of a material that reflected light in impossible ways. The surface seemed to shift colors, deep purple flowing into silver, then into shades that didn't exist in any spectrum Vale recognized. Geometric patterns covered every centimeter, intricate beyond human capability to carve. "How old is it?" he asked, his tactical mind already analyzing threats and opportunities. Yuki shook her head, wonder and fear mixing in her eyes. The dating analysis failed. Whatever this thing is made of, it's not registering on any of our equipment. It could be 10 years old or 10 million years old. We have no reference point. She pulled up another image, this one showing energy readings. "But Commander, it's not inert. There's something inside generating a power signature. Very faint, but definitely present. This thing is still active." Vale made his decision quickly. "Bring it aboard. Quarantine Protocol 7. I want it in the main lab within 3 hours, and I want every scanner we have pointed at it before anyone gets within 10 meters. He handed back the datapad. "And Yuki, prepare a message beacon for Earth. If this is first contact with alien technology, Command needs to know immediately." 6 hours later, Vale stood in the observation gallery above the main laboratory, watching through reinforced glass as robotic arms carefully positioned the artifact on an examination platform. The security team stood ready with weapons charged, though Vale doubted bullets would matter if this object proved hostile. The thing was beautiful in an unsettling way, its surface patterns seeming to move when viewed from different angles, suggesting depth and complexity that hurt to contemplate. Dr. Hassan Okoye, the station's chief xenotechnologist, manipulated the remote scanners with practiced precision. "I'm detecting what might be a data storage system," he said, his voice transmitted through the gallery speakers. "The power source appears to be some form of quantum battery. If I'm reading this correctly, it's been running continuously for at least several thousand years, possibly much longer. The efficiency is extraordinary. Can you access the data?" Vale asked, leaning forward against the railing. Something about the artifact commanded attention, drew the eye, made it difficult to look away. He noticed others in the gallery experiencing the same compulsion, their faces reflected in the glass, all focused intently on the object below. Hassan adjusted his instruments. "I'm trying passive scans only, no active probes yet. We don't know what might trigger a defensive response. But yes, I believe I can establish an interface. The technology is advanced beyond our current capabilities, but the basic principles of data transmission appear universal. Give me an hour to construct a compatible." The artifact flared with brilliant light, cutting off Hassan's words. Everyone in the laboratory stumbled backward as the air itself seemed to vibrate. Vale's combat instincts kicked in immediately. "Evacuate the lab. Move, move, move," he shouted into his communicator. But even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were too late. The patterns on the artifact's surface began to glow, pulsing in sequence, and a sound emerged, not from speakers, but from the very air around them. It was mathematical, precise, rhythmic, a signal. The artifact wasn't responding to their scans. It was transmitting. Vale slammed his hand on the emergency lockdown button, but the signal had already propagated through the station's systems. On every screen, every display, every data terminal, the same image appeared. A star map showing their exact location, pulsing like a beacon, broadcasting into space on frequencies that human technology couldn't have generated. The artifact had announced their presence to whoever had built it. The transmission continued for 47 seconds, then stopped. The artifact went dark, inert, as if it had never been active. In the laboratory below, Hassan picked himself up from the floor, checking his equipment with shaking hands. "Commander, that signal just propagated through subspace. Whatever that was, it wasn't meant for us. It was meant for someone else." Vale felt ice settle in his stomach. "How far did it reach?" he asked, though he already knew the answer wouldn't be comforting. Hassan's face appeared on the communication screen, pale and drawn. "Commander, that signal could have reached every corner of this galaxy. If anyone was listening, they know exactly where we are." 3 days passed in tense silence. Vale had sent the message beacon toward Earth immediately after the incident, but even traveling faster than light, the beacon wouldn't reach command for another 2 weeks. They were isolated, exposed, and waiting. The crew maintained their routines with admirable discipline, but fear lurked beneath every conversation. They had touched something ancient and powerful, and it had responded by calling to the stars. On the morning of the 4th day, the station's long-range sensors detected the anomaly. Chief Sensor Officer Chen Li's voice came through the intercom with barely controlled panic. "Commander, to the bridge immediately. We have multiple contacts entering the system. Configuration unknown. Size classification, massive." Vale reached the bridge in under a minute, his mind racing through tactical options. The main display showed space in the direction of Galactic Center, and emerging from hyperspace were shapes that defied his understanding of ship design. They were organic in appearance, like massive sea creatures made of metal and crystal, each one easily 10 times the size of Station Erebus. 7 ships materialized in formation, their hulls reflecting starlight in patterns that reminded Vale disturbingly of the artifact. "Receiving transmission," Chen announced, her voice steady despite her white knuckles. "It's not in any language database we have, but the computer is attempting translation through the artifact's data signature. Commander, they're using the same mathematical principles. Whatever built that artifact, these ships belong to the same civilization." The main screen flickered and a face appeared, if it could be called a face. The being was humanoid in basic structure, but there the similarity ended. Its skin was deep blue, almost black, with bioluminescent patterns that flowed across its features. Multiple eyes, arranged in a vertical line, regarded them with an intelligence that was clearly ancient and absolutely alien. When it spoke, the translation came through in a voice that sounded like distant thunder. "Humans of the Forgotten Colony, you have awakened the memory stone of Verid. For 8,000 cycles we have waited for this signal. For 8,000 cycles we have prepared for this moment. You are the descendants of those who destroyed our homeworld, who scattered our people across the empty dark, who condemned us to exile and suffering. Your ancestors committed the greatest crime in galactic history." The being leaned forward, its eyes blazing with cold light. "I am Admiral Kethva of the Viridian Empire. In the name of our lost world and our murdered billions, I bring you judgment. Surrender your station and prepare for interrogation. You will answer for the sins of your species. You will tell us where Earth lies hidden, and then we will burn it from the stars as you burned Verid from existence. This is not negotiation. This is inevitable justice." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in horrified silence. Vale stared at the alien ships holding position around the station, weapons arrays clearly visible even at this distance. His crew looked to him for answers, for hope, for the leadership that had brought them safely through 3 years in deep space. He had none of those things to offer. They were 47 humans in an aging research station, facing an empire that had nursed hatred for 8 millennia. They had no weapons capable of harming ships that size, no way to escape, and no time to call for help that would arrive before it was too late. "Commander," Yuki said quietly, standing beside his chair, her scientific mind already working the problem despite the fear in her eyes. "If they waited 8,000 years for that signal, if they've been searching for us all this time based on some ancient crime, then the artifact must contain proof, evidence of what happened. If we can access its memory, if we can show them the truth." "The truth," Vale interrupted, his voice harder than he intended. Dr. Tanaka, we don't even know if there is a truth that will satisfy them. For all we know, humanity really did destroy their world. Our history of that era is fragmented. The generation ships, the early colony wars, the dark centuries when Earth lost contact with its farthest settlements. Who knows what atrocities were committed in humanity's desperate expansion? He stood, squaring his shoulders, forcing confidence into his posture that he didn't feel. But you're right about one thing. The artifact is the key. It called to them. It contains something they want or something they fear. Either way, it's our only leverage. He turned to face his crew, seeing fear but also determination in their faces. These were explorers, scientists, people who had chosen to venture into unknown space in search of discovery. They understood risk. They understood the cost of pushing boundaries. We're going to activate that artifact fully. We're going to access its complete memory banks, no matter the danger. And we're going to find out what really happened 8,000 years ago between humanity and the Viridians. If we're guilty, we'll face that. If we're innocent, we'll prove it. Either way, we're not going down without knowing the truth. Hassan's voice came through the intercom from the laboratory. Commander, with all respect, fully activating the artifact could overload our power systems. It could trigger a chain reaction we can't control. It could be exactly what they want us to do, some kind of trap. Are you absolutely certain about this? Vale looked at the alien ships on the display, at the faces of his crew, at the distant stars that represented humanity's dreams of a better future among the cosmos. He thought about Earth, 300 light-years away, unaware that an ancient enemy had finally found them through one careless activation of a forgotten warning beacon. He thought about the 46 people depending on his next decision. I'm not certain about anything, Dr. Okoye, he admitted, his voice carrying to everyone on the bridge. But I know this. If we don't act, those ships will destroy us and then hunt down Earth. If we do nothing, we're dead anyway. At least this way we might learn something worth dying for. Activate the artifact. Full power. Let's see what story it wants to tell. The truth in the stars. The artifact consumed power like a hungry star, drawing energy from every system on Station Erebus until the lights dimmed and life support dropped to emergency levels. Commander Vale watched from the observation gallery as the cylindrical object blazed with light, so intense it hurt to look at directly, yet impossible to look away from. The geometric patterns on its surface moved now, flowing like liquid metal, forming shapes and symbols that seemed to carry meaning just beyond the edge of understanding. Translation matrix is forming, Hassan reported, his voice tight with concentration as he monitored the data streams flooding his instruments. The artifact isn't just storing information. It's actively trying to communicate. It's matching our language patterns, building a bridge between its designer's thoughts and our comprehension. Commander, I think this is an automated system specifically designed to prevent misunderstanding. The light from the artifact pulsed once, twice, then exploded outward in a holographic display that filled the entire laboratory. The crew gasped collectively as the images resolved into clarity, showing space, planets, and beings they had never imagined. The recording began to play, narrated by a voice that had been silent for 8,000 years. Now speaking in perfect, if slightly archaic, English, this is historical keeper Thane of Verid, recording in the year of great sorrow. I make this record so that future generations will know the truth, untainted by grief or anger. Our world is dying. The star we called Mother Sun has entered its final phase earlier than our scientists predicted. In 300 days it will expand and consume the inner planets, including our beloved Verid. We have no time to evacuate our 12 billion people. Our faster-than-light technology is still experimental. We have perhaps 60 ships capable of carrying our species to safety, and each can hold only 10,000 souls. The hologram showed a world of stunning beauty, continents of blue vegetation beneath a sky of deep crimson. Cities of elegant spires reached toward the heavens, connected by transport systems that flowed like rivers of light. The Viridian people moved through their civilization with grace, their bioluminescent skin patterns creating a visual language of emotion and thought. It was a culture at its height, advanced, peaceful, and wholly unprepared for cosmic catastrophe. We accepted our fate with dignity, the voice continued as the images shifted to show crowds gathering in city centers, their skin patterns pulsing with sorrow but also acceptance. Our mathematicians had calculated the possibilities. 600,000 would survive to seed a new colony. 11,999,000,000 400,000 would return to the cosmic ocean from which all life emerged. We made our peace with the universe. Vale felt his throat tighten as he watched families saying goodbye, parents sending their children to the evacuation ships while choosing to remain behind themselves. The Viridians faced extinction with a courage and grace that spoke to an ancient, profound civilization. Whatever had happened next, these were not monsters. They were people with all the complexity that implied. The historical recording continued. On day 273, while we prepared our final ceremonies, a signal arrived from deep space. It was not Viridian. It used mathematical principles we recognized as universal, and it said simply, "We have detected your crisis. We are coming. Do not despair." We did not know who had sent it. We did not know if we could trust it. But we had nothing to lose. The hologram shifted dramatically, showing the arrival of ships that Vale recognized with a shock that stole his breath. They were human generation ships, massive vessels built in the early days of slower-than-light travel, before humanity had cracked the secrets of faster-than-light engines. These were the colony ships that had left Earth 500 years before Vale had been born. The legendary Exodus fleet that had simply disappeared into the depths of space, their fate unknown. The humans arrived with 70 ships, each one an entire world unto itself. The voice of historical keeper Thane continued with audible wonder. They had been traveling through space for 3 generations, seeking a new home. They detected our sun's instability before we did. They changed course, sacrificing decades of their journey to reach us in time. They had no obligation to help. We were strangers, completely alien to them, but they came anyway. The hologram showed what happened next in stunning detail. The human ships took up positions around Verid, and teams of engineers and scientists worked alongside Viridians in a desperate race against astronomical forces. The humans shared their generation ship technology, showed the Viridians how to convert civilian vessels into long-range colony ships, transferred supplies and resources they could barely afford to spare. "Your ancestors saved 3 million of our people," the voice said, emotion breaking through the formal narration. Not 600,000. 3 million. They worked without rest, without asking for payment or gratitude. When we asked why they would do this for strangers, they said something we have never forgotten. Because we can. Because it's right. Because someday we might need help, and we hope someone will remember that mercy creates mercy. The recording showed the evacuation. The last ships leaving orbit as the star began its fatal expansion. The human generation ships formed a protective formation around the Viridian colony fleet, sharing navigation data, providing escort through dangerous space. The hologram showed exchanges of information, Viridians teaching humans about advanced physics, humans sharing practical engineering solutions, 2 species learning to communicate across the vast gulf of biological difference. We traveled together for 17 years. Historical keeper Thane continued. In that time, we became more than survivors. We became friends. The humans' generation ships were damaged, worn from centuries of travel. We helped them repair their vessels. They were running low on certain resources. We shared what we had. This was cooperation in its purest form. 2 species helping each other survive the merciless void. The hologram showed a moment that made Vale's chest ache. A human child and a Viridian youngling, playing together in the corridor of a ship, their laughter needing no translation. The image spoke to a future that might have been, a galaxy where humans and Viridians grew together, merged their strengths, created something new and beautiful. Then came the tragedy that would poison our future, the voice said, turning sorrowful. A rogue comet, undetected until too late, struck the human flagship, the ship that carried their leaders, their historical records, their cultural archives. In the impact, 90,000 humans died instantly. The survivors were scattered across the remaining ships, traumatized, their navigation systems damaged. We tried to help, but space is vast and our resources were limited. The hologram showed the aftermath. Debris fields, rescue operations, Viridian and human teams working desperately to save who they could. Vale saw the moment the fleet separated, not in anger but in necessity. The human ships were failing. They needed to reach the nearest habitable system immediately. The Viridians were still searching for a permanent home, needed to continue deeper into unexplored space. We said goodbye as friends. Historical keeper Thane's voice broke with clear emotion now. The humans gave us the gift of life. 3 million Viridians survived because your ancestors chose compassion over self-interest. They asked nothing in return except that we remember them kindly. We promised we would. We promised that Viridian memory would hold humanity in honor for all time. The hologram shifted to show the Viridian fleet continuing its journey, settling eventually on a new world they named New Verid. The colony struggled, faced hardships, overcame them with determination. Generation after generation was born on the new homeworld, never seeing the original Verid, knowing it only through stories and records. This memory stone was created to preserve truth, the voice explained as the images showed the artifact being constructed. Its purpose to store the complete, unalterable history of the Viridian people's greatest trial and their salvation by unlikely saviors. We built 7 stones, placed them throughout space along the routes our people traveled, so that no matter what happened, future Viridians would know their true past. We never wanted to forget the humans. We never wanted to forget their kindness. The hologram flickered, showing corruption, damage, systems failing. But time is cruel to memory, Historical Keeper Thane's voice said sadly. Our colony was struck by radiation storms from an unstable nebula. Our biological memory, the genetic storage in our neural patterns, was damaged. Our digital records corrupted. Across 3 generations, the past became confused. The trauma of losing our homeworld merged with the trauma of the comet impact. The 2 events collapsed in our damaged memories. The images showed what had happened to the Viridian collective consciousness, how radiation damage had twisted their historical records, how the story of salvation had transformed into a story of destruction. Humans hadn't saved 3 million Viridians. In the corrupted memories, they had killed 12 billion. The comet that destroyed the human flagship became a human weapon that destroyed Verid. The truth inverted. Saviors became destroyers, and 8,000 years of history grew from that poisoned root. I recorded this memory stone before the radiation storms began. Historical Keeper Thane's voice concluded. The hologram showing the artifact being activated and placed in a protective chamber. I recorded it because I feared what time might do to truth. If you are watching this, if you are Viridian, know that humans saved us. If you are human, know that we remembered you with love and gratitude. Do not let false memory poison the future. Do not let tragedy create hatred where friendship once grew. Remember the truth. Humanity showed us that survival is not enough. We must help each other survive. The hologram faded, the laboratory falling into silence broken only by the hum of equipment and the sound of people trying to process what they had witnessed. Vale stood frozen, his mind reeling from the revelation. Earth hadn't committed genocide. The Generation ships had performed one of the greatest rescue operations in history, saving millions of beings they had no reason to help except human compassion. Commander, Yuki said softly, tears streaming down her face, and we need to show them. The Viridian ships need to see this recording. This is what they've been searching for. This is the truth they lost. Vale nodded slowly, his tactical mind already working through the implications. Hassan, can we transmit this recording to their flagship? He asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. Can we send them their own history? Hassan looked up from his instruments, his expression a mix of hope and fear. Yes, Commander. The artifact has already prepared a transmission package. It's been waiting for 8,000 years to tell this story to whoever would listen. I can send it now. Do it, Vale ordered. Send them everything. Let them see what we saw. Let them remember who they really are and who we really were to each other. The transmission lasted 3 hours. Every piece of data, every holographic image, every word from Historical Keeper Thane flowing through space to the waiting Viridian fleet. Vale kept the communication channel open, watching the alien ships on his displays, noting their weapons remained charged, their formation unchanged. For 3 hours, silence reigned while an empire confronted its own forgotten past. Finally, the face of Admiral Kethva appeared on the main screen again. But something had changed. The cold fury had been replaced by something harder to define. Confusion, sorrow, shame, and something else that looked almost like grief. Commander Vale, the Admiral said, the translation capturing emotional nuance that hadn't been present before. I have reviewed the Memory Stone's complete record. I have shared it with every ship in my fleet, and they have transmitted it back to our home world. By now, every Viridian in our empire is learning the truth, learning that for 8,000 years we have hated our saviors. The Admiral's multiple eyes closed, The bioluminescent patterns on its skin pulsing in a rhythm Vale somehow understood as deep pain. We taught our children that humans destroyed our world. We built our empire on the need for vengeance. We spent millennia preparing for this moment, to find Earth and deliver justice for a crime that never happened. And now we learn that the only crime was time's erosion of truth. Vale swallowed hard, choosing his next words carefully. Admiral, I can't imagine what your people are feeling right now. To have your entire historical foundation challenged. To learn that your purpose was built on corrupted memory rather than fact. But I think there's something important in Historical Keeper Thane's message. The past matters, but what matters more is what we choose to do now, today, with the truth we finally have. Kethva's eyes opened, focusing on Vale with an intensity that made him want to step back despite the screen between them. What would you have us do, human? How does one apologize for 8,000 years of hatred? How does one repay a debt so old that both debtor and creditor forgot it existed? Vale thought about his crew, scared but brave, facing an empire with dignity and courage. He thought about those ancient generation ships full of humans who had diverted years of their journey to help strangers. He thought about what Historical Keeper Thane had said about mercy creating mercy. You remember, Vale said simply. You remember the truth and you teach it to your children so it never gets lost again. And maybe if you're willing, you help us remember too. Those generation ships, the ones who saved your people, they vanished. We never knew what happened to them. Maybe together we could search for answers. Maybe together we could honor both our ancestors by doing what they did, choosing cooperation over conflict. The Admiral was silent for a long moment, the patterns on its skin shifting through colors Vale had no names for. Finally, Kethva stood, the massive frame filling the screen, and performed a gesture that needed no translation, a bow of profound respect. The Viridian Empire came to this system seeking vengeance, Commander Vale. We will leave it having found redemption. We will call off the war that never should have been prepared. We will tell our people the truth. And yes, we will honor our ancestors' debt to humanity by offering our friendship to their descendants. This is the beginning of a new era, built on the foundation of honesty rather than hatred. The transmission shifted, showing multiple Viridian ships, their weapon systems powering down, their formations opening. We have already sent word to our home world. When your message beacon reaches Earth, they will find not threats but invitations. The Viridian Empire wishes to propose an alliance with humanity. Together, we will search for the lost generation ships. Together, we will restore the history both our peoples lost. Together, we will prove that Historical Keeper Thane's faith in cooperation was not misplaced. Vale felt something release in his chest, tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. Around him on the bridge, his crew was openly weeping, laughing, embracing each other with the relief of people who had faced extinction and found hope instead. The nightmare that had begun with activating an ancient artifact had transformed into something none of them could have imagined. There's one more thing, Commander, Admiral Kethva said, and the camera angle shifted to show the alien's full command deck, revealing dozens of Viridian officers all watching the transmission. Historical Keeper Thane's message ended with a quote from the human leader, who commanded the rescue operation. I believe these words should guide both our species as we move forward together. The human said, we remember by helping, not by seeking revenge. We honor the fallen by ensuring others don't fall. This is how memory becomes meaning. The Admiral's bioluminescent patterns pulsed in what Vale now recognized as solemn agreement. For 8,000 years, the Viridian Empire remembered wrong. We honored our dead by seeking to create more death. Now we will learn to remember as humans taught us to remember, by helping, by ensuring others don't fall, by turning memory into meaning. The transmission ended with an exchange of coordinates, plans for formal diplomatic contact, promises to share technology and information. The Viridian fleet maintained position around Station Erebus not as captors, but as guardians, ensuring the human researchers were safe, while both sides prepared for a future neither had expected to have. Vale returned to the observation deck where this had all begun, staring out at the gas giant and its dancing rings of ice, and at the Viridian ships that now represented possibility rather than threat. Dr. Tanaka joined him, her earlier fear replaced by quiet wonder. Do you think they'll find them? She asked softly. The generation ships? After 8,000 years, is there any chance they survived? Vale considered the question, thinking about human resilience, about the people who had traveled through space for generations seeking a new home, who had paused their journey to save 3 million strangers. I think if anyone could survive 8,000 years in the void, it would be people like that. People who valued life enough to risk everything to preserve it, even when that life wasn't their own. He turned to face her, seeing hope reflected in her eyes. But even if we never find them, even if they're long gone, they've left us something important. They've left us an example, a story about who humanity can be when we're at our best. And now, thanks to that artifact, thanks to historical keeper, Thane's determination to preserve truth, that story won't be forgotten. Not by humans, and not by Viridians. Above Station Erebus, the stars shone with ancient light, and among them moved ships from 2 civilizations beginning the long, difficult, beautiful work of building friendship from the ruins of misunderstanding. It would take time, effort, patience, and the constant choice to remember truth over comfortable fiction. But both species had been given a second chance, an opportunity to honor their ancestors by being worthy of the sacrifices those ancestors had made. Commander Marcus Vale smiled, thinking about the journey ahead. Humanity had reached for the stars seeking knowledge and resources. They had found something infinitely more valuable. Proof that compassion echoes across millennia, that truth endures, even when buried, that the best of who we are can bridge any distance, even the vast gulf between worlds. The artifact continued to pulse with faint light in the laboratory below. Its purpose fulfilled. Its story finally told. It had waited 8,000 years to prevent a war born from corrupted memory. In the end, it had done more than prevent war. It had created peace. And somewhere among the stars, perhaps the crew of those ancient generation ships looked down on this moment and knew that their choice to help strangers had mattered, had echoed through time, had changed the course of galactic history. Memory became meaning. Mercy created mercy. And in the cold vastness of space, 2 species found each other not as enemies but as friends whose ancestors had shown them the way, if only they had the courage to remember.